Hi, welcome to the Louie File. I wanted to just take a few minutes today and just talk for a second about sobriety and life. This is, here it is, June of 2017. I got born again in 2001. So I've been a Christian, one who is joined to Christ, that would be, for 16 years. Prior to that, I spent, I would normally just say 15 years, it's approximately that, about the age of 15 or 16 to about the age of 30 or 31, about a 15-year period, smoking pot, and taking pills and drinking alcohol, snorting cocaine, taking acid, I mean just lots of things. I remember, when I went to this methadone clinic, and the counselor had me tell her about my drug history, and she started writing all this stuff down on a piece of paper as I listed all of these things I had done, all of these substances. And at one point she turned the paper over, and that was one of many little moments where I realized I was a lot further in trouble and in the dark than I really thought I had been. I think even up until the point of sitting in that chair in that clinic, I thought that I somehow had a little bit of a grip on something in my life. And that's where we all are. We all think that no matter how bad we are or how bad our decisions or how much consequence we have in our life, we just hang on tenaciously to this, sometimes with our fingertips, to this idea that we're independent and we're in charge of our own selves. It's the big lie. It really is the big lie. Lots of people go to AA and NA and all sorts of versions of step programs, 12-step programs, and I'm not on this video here trying to knock that, but I am here to tell you that living life spontaneously is what God is after. He's not expecting us to abide by His very own laws. Now, let me make sure I phrase that properly. He doesn't expect us as independent beings to keep His law. He knows we can't keep His law. I mean, if there had been some law that could give life, then Christ, He would have just gave the law, and Christ would have died for nothing. If there was something, some way, if there was some step, if there was some program, if there was some ritual, some tradition that we could keep that would give us the life of Christ in us, then God would have done that. But that's not true. According to the Scriptures, there was only one way, and it had to be through the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And that is the way that we come through. The Apostle Paul says it very clearly. He says, walk in the Spirit, and you won't fulfill the lust of the flesh, which is exactly where you are when you're in addiction. You're completely enslaved to the lust of your flesh, what your feelings and your want-tos and your hungers and your desires, they just rule over you, and you give into them over and over until finally they're making you sick. And finally, the weight of the consequences and the sickness that comes with that weighs you down until you're ready to scream out for help. I went to a methadone clinic. They wanted me to go to a 12-step program, and I just wasn't, I didn't feel led in that direction, so I started going to church, and I ended up becoming born again, miraculously transformed. So people say to me, well, Louie, what about now? Well, it's the same. I've been radically transformed, and I've never gone back, because once you become a new creature, there is no going back. Do you ask a butterfly? Have you gone back to being a caterpillar yet, Louie? Have you ever fallen back to caterpillar world, and have you ever found yourself becoming a caterpillar again? No. A butterfly doesn't identify themselves as a caterpillar, so therefore a born-again new creature in Christ doesn't identify himself as an addict. God transforms people and pulls them into His Spirit. He pulls them out of their fleshy realm. In Romans 8 it says that if the Spirit of God is in you, then you're His. But if the Spirit of God isn't, then you're not His. And it says that you are not in the flesh, but in the Spirit. So the born-again believer is in the Spirit. So we have to learn how to walk in this Spirit. Now that's different, right? And walking in the Spirit is is perfectly shown to us, expressed to us by Jesus Christ himself, God, the God-man. Jesus was the full expression of God. He was the fullness of the deity or the Godhead in bodily form. So when Jesus walked the earth in Galilee, Judea, Nazareth, the places that he lived, he exemplified what it meant to be a human living in the Spirit of his Father. And what did that look like? Well, it looked spontaneous. It didn't have a formula to it. Everywhere Jesus went, people were bringing sick people to him, and then religious people were on his back about him breaking laws because of their misunderstanding of who he was and misunderstanding of God's laws to begin with. But the idea, what I want to get across to you today is, if someone asks me, Louie, how do you stay away from drugs and alcohol? How do you keep yourself clean? I would say, I don't. I do not keep myself. That's the key. When you look in the Gospel of John, Jesus says over and over again, my teaching is not my own. Apart from my Father, he says, I can do nothing. I only do what I see him do. My words are not my own. I only say what he shows me to say. In fact, in one place, Jesus said, it's not me, but it's the Father in me doing his works. And this is where the rub comes in, because people do not want to let go of their independence. They think that they can do good and avoid evil. And they're taking all kinds of courses and classes and self-help books and step programs. All of these things are only good if they lead you to Christ. If they push you to the end of yourself and you cry out to God and Christ moves in because you're openly receiving him, then boy, they have done something great. Even God's own law says in Galatians that it was a schoolmaster to lead us to Christ. And once we come to Christ, we no longer need the schoolmaster. Now we're walking in the Spirit. What did Jesus do? When he would be confronted with a sickness or a demon or a problem with the religious leaders dealing with his theology, he never dealt with them the same any two ways. One guy came up or was brought to him that was blind. He spit on the ground and made mud and put it in his eyes. Another guy, he just gave him his sight. There was no mud involved. Isn't that something? One group, he said, go show yourself to the priest and do the sacrifices that are required. Another person, he says, don't tell anyone what you've seen or what's happened here. It just seems so random. There's no tradition in that. Jesus was living in the Spirit. He was walking after the Spirit of his Father. And that meant just being open in his ears and his eyes and his want-tos to do and to move in the direction that his Father had him in any given moment. Any given moment. We all start out needing supervisors or mentors. No doubt about it. I mean, that's one thing about AA that's good, is you have sponsors, people that have been further down the road than you. I wholeheartedly agree. Jesus said, go make disciples. So disciples are learners. So as we learn, we turn around and we help others to learn. But the goal isn't for them to be attached to you. The goal is for them to come to know oneness with the Father. Even Jesus told his disciples, it's better that I go away, because if I don't go away, then I can't send the Comforter. And he prayed in John 17, he said, Father, my prayer is that they would be one as you and I are one. See, he was handing us, his disciples, off to the Father, and the Spirit of God would move into them, and then the Spirit would be their teacher. The Spirit would be their comforter. See, Jesus had taught them and healed them and protected them and kept them up to this point, and now he's handing them over to his Father and the Spirit to be the one to carry them on through the rest of the way. So that's the goal. The goal isn't just sobriety, but it's learning how to live in the Spirit and be the new creature that God has made you to be. All right, I hope this hasn't been too rambly. I hope this has been helpful to you, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching the Louie File.